Hello. Have you ever thought when you go to any of these forms, we call them HTML form, like in this case is Gmail, when you fill the information and click next, and then finally you go and enter your password and click next, what really happens? In this video, I'm going to talk about how to work with HTML forms. But before that, I'll talk about CGI, which stands for Common Gateway Interface. I'll talk about how data are traveled from the client, your browser, to the server and returned from the server. By the end of this video, you should have a good understanding of how data are traveled from the client to the server, what is CGI, and why do we need to have an HTML form. I want to go ahead and draw the interaction between the client and server. So when you see a form, for instance, in this case, if you have a form that has a field called username and another one that is called password, another field, if you consider this a text box, and of course when you collect this information, you're required to have a button, which we call it a submit button, to send the information to a destination. In this interaction, we use, as I said, CGI stands for Common Gateway Interface. It's a method of sending an information to a server and process this information and return the information back to the clients. So, if this is our server, somewhere in this server, we have a storage that saves the information in that storage. And as soon as you submit the form, the information will go to the server. Right in this server, we need a piece of software or a script, which we call it server-side script, to process this information for us. Now, there are different types of server-side scripts. One is PHP, we have ASP, Servlet, JSP, Perl, and so many others. So all the script that I listed here and many others that I didn't has the ability to read the information that are passed from the form, collect those field value and the name, search the database and find the information. As soon as they find the information, simply they will process those information and return the information back to the client. Now, what they return to the client can be an error message telling you that the username and password is wrong, like the example I showed you at the beginning of this video, or it can be a page that you can go and manage your accounts. Where in Gmail example is where you can actually go to your inbox, send a message, delete a message, search for the message, and so on. So in order to create this interaction, we're required to send this information to the server. There are two ways to send this information to a server. So let me just get rid of this. There are two methods to send the information to the server. Let me go ahead and write those two methods. Methods of sending the information to the server. One, we call it get method, and the other one, we call it post method. There are different ways of sending this information to the server, as I said, and one of the methods, as I said, is get, and the other one is post. So let me go ahead and open a new browser and show you the information. If you look at here, let me go ahead and copy this, paste it into a notepad so I can show you what's going on here. So I'll just copy the URL and paste it into the notepad. Let's go and examine the part of the URL. So we know HTTPS is the protocol. We know accounts.google.com is the URL. As a matter of fact, we call the accounts alias and google.com is the URL. And from here on, These are list of parameters. Now the way parameters works is it has a name and it has a value. Next one, we come over here and we look at this right after the question mark. Like this is the script name. We have a question mark and then we start adding the parameters. So continue is the parameter name, and what we have here is the parameter value. As you can see, each of these parameters are separated with an ampersand. Let me just go ahead and separate those for you so you can see better. So I'm going to reuse the rest so we can see the smaller portion of the URL. So as I said, here we have a parameter and we have its value separated with an ampersand. Then the second one is service, equals sign, value, and then ampersand. And then so on as it goes. You can see that a parameter has a name, has a value, and is separated within an ampersand. Now every single click that you do on any page on the internet is considered to use a get method, meaning the exact same format as I explained here will be passed to the server. Server processes this information, gets the value of each of these parameters, and process the request and return the value. Let's go ahead and think in this way that we have a URL at google.com, and what it does is it simply goes and creates and receives two numbers and sum them up and return the value. So in this case, I'll call it sum.php because that is the server-side script on the server. I'll put a question mark to separate the script name from its parameter. And I need to pass how many parameters to do this addition? Two numbers. So I'm going to call the first one num1 equal 10, ampersand separate to go to the next parameter, num2 is equal 5. So in this case, I have created a URL if such a script exists on google.com, which is called sum.php, and it has the capability of receiving these two parameters. It can simply go on, receive the parameter, add them together, and show the sum, which in this case is going to be 50. Okay, I already have prepared a script to do this. Let me go ahead and use that one. So the URL to access the calculator file is HTTP, this is the protocol, this is the alias, this is the domain name, and this is the path to where the script is. So the path is 2019 Mozilla W2 and the script name is calc.php. Let's look at the parameter. Parameter comes after the question mark, and ampersand separates these two parameters. So n1 equal 10, n2 is equal 5. It should be ready to go. Let's go ahead and run that. So I'm passing 5 and 10. Let's see the result. Do not consider what you see after this. This is just PHP code. But if you look at this, simply I can say 10 plus 5 is equal 15. I can simply go ahead and change these values here. Let's say I'm going to go 15 and I'll make this one 20. So the result should be 35, right? You see that? So right now I have created a dynamic script, server-side script using PHP language to be able to call it and pass this information. I'm using get method to call the script. Now, of course, there are some limitations with the get method. Let's go through the get method limitation. So the get method is restricted up to 1024 character only, meaning the number of characters you are setting through the URL cannot exceed 1024 characters. More than that is going to get truncated. Never use get method if you have password or other sensitive information to send to the server. Why? Because this can stay in the URL of your browser, and then people can simply go to the browser history and log into your account if it uses a username and password. Cannot be used to send binary data. Like you cannot upload a file using a get method. These are the key information about the get, Please keep those in mind. Now, with the post, it's different. So if I say you can never use get method to send the sensitive information such as password, how these login form works then? How would they secure it? So the way they secure this, they use post method instead. The difference between the post and get is it still has a URL to send, including the script name, but all the parameters are not embedded into the URL, but internally is sent to the server, and server still has access to those. So whenever you want to upload a file, you definitely use post method. Whenever you want to secure the information in a way to not post it on the URL. When I say secure, it doesn't mean that it's going to be encrypted when the information travels through the internet. Still, people can intercept those information too if it's not HTTPS. So the only thing is not going to append the parameter to the end of the URL whenever you use get method. Let's go back to our calculator script. Remember that? Now just imagine you have created a calculator, and then what you want to do is simply you want to let people or the whole world to use your script, right? Let me just shorten the URL so we can focus more on the list here. So let's look at this. So if this is how you let the board use your calculator, everything comes after this part. You must ask people to enter those information. So anybody who wants to use your calculator, you say, okay, you know what? The first parameter name must be N1. You got to equality of value. Don't forget to put an ampersand and then make the second parameter should be called N2. So if they call it N3, it's not going to work, right? And you must make it equal a number. Now, how hard is it going to be to to give instruction to people to use your calculator in this case? Very hard, isn't it? So in order to make this simpler, we are using HTML form, or in order to collect data from the visitors or the users of your website with some sort of interface that it makes it easier for them to enter the data, we use HTML form. In next video, I'm going to talk about HTML form.